Hi, everyone. Welcome to A New View. I'm Lee, and I'm here with Shira and Juji. Kim, unfortunately, could not join us today, but we are still four friends, speakers, professionals, all from different cultures, backgrounds, and age groups, coming together to offer healing and inspiration. Today, we're discussing a really interesting topic, codependency. The definition of codependency is an emotional and behavioral condition that prevents a person from having a healthy, mutually satisfying relationship. This is in general, and we're going to get into this today. I can't wait. Who wants to get us started?
Whew. Well, I can totally get us started because this word codependency, codependent, was just something that was sort of like flouncing around in my life. Like I'd heard it, I remember my mother talking about it. It was just like not a solidified concept in my mind. Little did I know that I would end up being one. And so, for me, it's really at the heart of it. For me, it's about losing yourself in a relationship. And for me, it's also something that kind of erodes. It like happens over time, sort of slowly, like water torture, and I can clearly look back and see how I was codependent in my marriage. I was with him for 32 years, and it definitely did not start off that way at all. And it wasn't until toward the end when I read this book she's like the guru of codependency, Melody Beattie. And I finished reading that book, and it was literally like someone took off these glasses and like, now I see more clearly. And for a very long time, I was sort of blaming and shaming and accusing my ex of certain behaviors. But really the truth of it is that I was codependent and I was completely losing myself. And I was second guessing myself, and I could feel the lack of trust within myself. And they also call it like relationship addiction sometimes. And it's just so clear to me now, but when you're in it, it's just so important to ask questions, right? Like we always say this, it's important to ask questions, mostly of yourself, but definitely of others. Like start seeking out, like if something's not feeling right and you feel like you're just kind of getting sucked, like just look for answers. They're there.
Mm-hmm. One of the things, Shira, that I'm wondering, because I've also experienced being in a codependent romantic relationship, is do you feel like being so fixated on this other person was a way for you to like sort of detach from not just yourself, but like what was going on in your life? Like, I feel that what really facilitated me ending up in this situation was having a lot of like unsettled things in the other parts of my life that I was trying to sort of escape from. And this other person was my escape. And we used to call it, like when we were together, we used to call it bubble time. Because we said that we had like created this bubble and like nothing else outside existed when we were in that bubble, which was like totally unhealthy, because I never really talked about what was bothering me outside of the relationship. It was just superficial conversation. It was escapism at its finest. There was usually alcohol involved. And it was really just a way for me to like suspend time in that moment. And then I got like addicted, not even to the person, but the escapism. And so it was really easy for me to associate escapism with this other human being.
I just have to say something on the heels of what you're saying, because this is so fascinating. You all know that I belong to this group called ACA, which stands for Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. And let's face it, who really doesn't have dysfunction in their family. But one of the things that, one of the tenets of this program is that we are fixated on other people because it allows us not to look too closely at our own faults. And so when you say escapism, for me, it's very clear to me now that I was so fixated on his issues and what was going on with him. And he used to say to me, I feel like I'm under a microscope. And I'm like, yeah, you kind of were. Like, you know, because I didn't know. I didn't know what I was doing to the relationship. I didn't know what I was doing to myself. And so I can clearly see now that I was trying to avoid putting a big old mirror up to myself going, what's going on with you? Like, what are you doing? I didn't do that.
Mhm.
Now, of course, I've done it. I'm like, so
Yeah.
much clarity. Wow.
And I love how you describe it as escapism, Shuji, because that's what it seems to be. But it's also very fascinating to me that you said you guys were in a bubble. And it's generally, I think, people on the outside that see that and kind of classify that as like, these two are in a bubble. You know, these two are this relationship and they're so codependent on each other. So that's pretty wild that you had that, you were conscious of the fact that that was going on. Whereas for you, Shira, how different that you realized it later.
Mm.
Very much so. And I was in hiding. I was in shame. There were just a lot of things wrong. And I kept rationalizing. I kept making excuses. I just kept thinking that things would get better. So there was a lot of delusion involved in the relationship. And I think in codependency in general, because people can say things to you from the outside and you're like, no, that's not what it is at all, you know? But the truth is it's slowly eating away at you.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I believe, denial involved. There's
Yes.
a lot of, not wanting to be weak. There's so much seeking of approval that you're
Yes.
willing to do whatever, at any cost, to say it, to save yourself, to protect the other person. And it's kind of like this toxic snowball effect of like, when you look at all of it, I tend to think, just like so many other behavioral issues that us as humans have, it comes probably down to fear and shame. And we may not know it at the time, but it's just wild when you come out of it, or when you are an observer from a distance. It's so much easier to start pointing and figuring out, wow, they are just so insecure, or I have so much fear around this topic or this thing that we sabotage ourselves.
Well, to your point, like I want to sort of separate, because I'm a true believer that like we can never as outsiders know for sure what goes on behind closed doors in other people's relationships. But I do feel that if you are in a position where you are consistently having to defend your relationship to other people, then there is something to take a look at there, because if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's like, if multiple people have told you that your relationship seems unhealthy to some degree, then, there is something to look at there. And I feel like everything we always talk about sort of like loops back around to self-love, because when you're in a codependent relationship, what you're constantly doing is you're requiring of your partner that they consistently pour into your cup. That's what you run to them for. Like, you're having a shitty day, you're having a problem with X, Y, and Z. And then that escapism is for no other reason than to like pump you up. And you're here and we're here as human beings to really like examine that and go, okay, like, how do I self-soothe? How do I pour into my own cup so that I am not making somebody else responsible for that? Because like, yeah, bubble time was great. But then like when things didn't go exactly how I wanted them to, it was like blow up fights and like really horrible, like ongoing text conversations all day long that were like, I mean, I look at back at that and I cringe. I'm like, how was that sustainable for so
Oh
long?
my God, I can
I think it's not. It's probably not. It doesn't sound like it can be sustainable, you know, and to your point about defending oneself constantly or defending the other person, you know, defending ourselves also comes into play because generally, I think with these kinds of relationships, it takes two, right? It takes two to tango, because if one person is so not fully dependent on the other, they're going to see it. There's going to be some kind of a change or a shift happening, or maybe out of compassion, they maybe can teach the other person. But generally, I believe it's two. And it's like you constantly are not just defending the other person, but yourself as well, you know, and it's a very toxic kind of a condition, I think, if I may call it a condition, because it's I think some people are on this train for so long and believe that they are right.
Oh, I mean, 100%. But, you know, in my situation, it was more because the origins of codependency stem back to, you know, if you have an alcoholic child or an alcoholic spouse and you're just like so fixated on fixing them, like, you know, you need to go to rehab and just telling them what to do and what not to do, and just so focused on their lives that you completely lose yourself. And you almost start taking on like certain characteristics because you're just knocking your head against the wall over and over again. And so I can clearly see my behavior. I remember this feeling of like, you know, I'm so enlightened and I meditate and I this and that. And I would just always give him like articles to read and videos and things to ponder, just always thinking that it would change, so fixated on him. And that's where the aha moment came. I was just like, wow, you are out of control, really. And it just made me so unhappy because it was never going to change. And so, you know, that's why shows like this are important, and understanding parameters around disorders. And I mean, thank God there's more discussion about mental health and illnesses and disorders and all of that. But at the end of the day, we have to take care of ourselves.
Yeah. You know, and unfortunately, this kind of behavior with codependency very often is just, it's so unhealthy and like we said before, unsustainable. You know, the whole defending thing, like kind of takes me back to, I have a family member who has an addiction, and it's been in denial for a very, very long time and continues to be so. And it's very, very concerning. And it's like, you know, you get to a point sometimes when you don't know how to approach it anymore. You don't know how to help. You can't. There's nothing you can do after a certain point. No matter what you tell that person, you know, it's like they snap back like, no, that's, you know, it's denial 100%. And, you know, it becomes this thing that you just have to let go. You know, you just have to step back and hope that there will be some kind of enlightenment or a breakthrough at some point where they want to help themselves and in their own relationship with their partner.
Yeah, well, you guys know one of my favorite quotes is, I'm learning to love the sound of my footsteps walking away from things not meant for me. And when you are codependent, when you realize that you're codependent, which by the way, if you don't focus on yourself and your flaws and your faults and your own crap, you're just going to repeat the same thing. That I find that over and over again, people who are in specifically romantic relationships, if you get out of a codependent relationship, you don't take the time to assess and review and, you know, ask the questions, right? And then so we tend to go back into it unknowingly, unconsciously. So that's why it's really important to just put the pause button on and go, I need help. I need to figure out why I feel so inside, and do the work. Do the work.
Yeah.
I feel like when I broke that relationship off, like it really felt like I was like I don't know, like detoxing. Like it really felt like I had been addicted to this person and this feeling and this situation for so long that, I mean, I can only see it as codependent in hindsight, because even at that time, I was looking at it as like, oh, this is just a breakup and my heart is broken and that's why this is so hard, you know, not even really missing the person. Like if I'm like truly honest with myself, it was the crutch that I was missing. It was the total ability to like disconnect from reality with this other person that I was missing. And because I didn't have that crutch, and because I was like in this huge sort of like upheaval of my life, being like, oh, well, nothing that I thought I knew about myself is true. So everything sort of was compounded in that at that time, but it really is in this space of like true self-reflection, and then being on this self-love journey that I can look back and say like, wow, you know, I have compassion for the person that I was who needed that. And I can clearly see like what I don't want from a relationship anymore, you know, and without saying too much, my current husband feels the very same way because he's experienced similar things. And so it's like very much now about like, okay, I pour into my cup, you pour into your cup, and then we're together. Actually, the love can flow in such a more natural and healthy way, because it's not a dependence. It's like, it's a want to be there. It's not a need. It's not this unhealthy attachment to like, if you don't reflect back to me exactly what I need you to reflect in this moment, then like, you know.
Yeah. Well, you guys have both, I'm sure he as well, I don't know him, but grown a lot. I mean, and you have to be somewhat evolved to get to where you are today, to be able to say that with a partner. You know, I think in our younger years, I mean, things were different. And I love how you use the word hindsight, because like when I also look back in my marriage, and I don't know if there was a codependence per se, I really have to think about that, but there were a lot of other things. But in hindsight, it's like we always need to get out of that bubble, right? Don't we? And that's when we see it. We are like kind of observing our own life and how it was and how we were in this instance. And I love that, because that's where we really get to see, if we're open to it, that's when we get to see what we don't want to do anymore, how we don't want to be anymore, and what might serve us better.
And we also get a lot of this from the way we were brought up. I mean, I saw a lot of codependency. Now that I know what it is, and now that I've experienced it, I'm just like, oh, lot of subconscious unfinished business. You know, that's why I know we've done episodes where you have to really pay attention where you came from, because there's genetics involved, there's nature and nurture. But when you have these aha moments, you're like, oh, I was recreating patterns I wasn't even aware of. Duh. But how nice it is. Because listen, we all come into this world as an individual person. And then, yes, we get together with other people and we procreate and we have children and we fuck them up. And I always tell my kids, I'm like, I'm going to fuck you up somehow. And then it's your job to figure it out. Because that's the truth. But that's also part of the love. I mean, it sounds crazy, but that's also a lovely part of the journey. If you're, like you said, Lee, if you're open to it, you're going to have some messed up thinking. And then the journey is, uncovering, discovering, and then recovering. Oh, I like that. I like that little rhyme scheme. Anyway, I digress.
Discovering and recovering. I think you should write a book. That's the perfect title. But anyway, I think, if there's nothing else you want to contribute, ladies, I think this is a great place to wrap up. I've really enjoyed this conversation today. It was great. And if you, our viewers, have enjoyed our conversation, please subscribe to our channel and be sure to let us know if you have any topic requests or questions by commenting below. We'll see you soon, and thank you for watching.
Bye.